327 West Street. No one is breaking down crime. If an officer would rather receive please pick up.
Hey everyone, in today's video we are going to be taking a look at an obscure piece of analog horror known as Kirby.mp4. So we all know Kirby, little pink puffball full of life and joy. So now take that little beautiful little creature and turn it into something very much the opposite and much more of the stuff of nightmares. And that is what the YouTube channel called The Maple Riot has done for us. And just to be clear, I'm in no way, shape, or form criticizing the YouTube channel, more on the contrary. Making a little teeny tiny Kirby seem intimidating and scary is actually a pretty gnarly accomplishment. So before we head on into the series, I do want to put up a quick disclaimer. If you are any way, shape, or form a super fan Kirby enthusiast that does not want their image of Kirby tainted in any way, you should probably head out. But yes, you have been warned, so without further ado, let's get into it. Sit back, relax, and, enjoy getting your image of Kirby slightly tainted. Just slightly. The first video in the series boots up in regular Kirby game fashion, showcasing the evil Nintendo logo. That's not a joke. Nintendo is evil. Do you see how much Switch Joy-Cons are selling for nowadays?
God, bro. Oh, hell no.
The intro animation begins to run, but the video is extremely distorted and crashes almost immediately. Kirby Superstar, a Kirby game which was released for the Super Nintendo back in 1996. Only 8 seconds into the video and things are already looking extremely unsettling. Spring Breeze is shown on screen, but there's something off about Kirby's smile, appearing cynical and maniacal. And just for reference, I did want to pull up what actually appears in an original copy of the game. The sprites are almost exactly alike, but when we look at the distorted copy of the game, Kirby's eyes are blacked out and has a grin much larger than before. The player attempts to start the game, but as soon as they click the Spring Breeze game mode, Kirby's eyes shift towards the player. It only happens for about a split second, but if we do slow down the footage, we can see Kirby staring directly at the player. And that's when the game begins to start glitching constantly. And however, perhaps the most creepy part about this entire sequence is that if we pause the video at the perfect time, the screen glitches and we get a view of the outside world. We get a view of the world outside the game. And we can see the room in which the person is playing the Kirby game. The game proceeds, and within seconds, Kirby is killed by an unknown force and ends the level. However, if we do slow down the footage, it looks like a blacked out version of Waddle Doo, one of the helpers Kirby creates in the early levels of the game. However, here it looks very disturbing. Kirby's game over animation plays, and that is when we are shown who was playing the game. 3 children all gathered around the game, and upon looking at the TV, Kirby's demonic face looks like it wants to get out. Number 2. Kirby Test Room. In the second installment called Kirby Test Room, Kirby stands in an empty room. No lives or no score is present. Then running to the right side of the screen, only for the screen to glitch into some sort of commercial where a woman is screaming. So I was able to track down this short clip to the original source, which was from a commercial which aired back in 1995 called Too Much Kirby, or TMK, which the series is named after. And honestly, by itself, the commercial is pretty weird and freaky, especially being marketed for children. Essentially, what happens is that this kid is wheeled into the emergency room, and all the doctors conclude that what has happened to the kid is that they had too much Kirby.
TMK. TMK. Too much Kirby.
And then the camera switches to the kid, and the kid is extremely bloated like a balloon. And then they just roll the kid into a room with a bunch of other kids that are also blown up. 1995, man. I wish I was there. Returning to the episode after this distorted commercial, the tape glitches once again, and we can see Kirby within the static saying one thing: spread. Kirby lies lifeless on the ground, attempting to move, only for a gaping hole in Kirby's head to appear, as if Kirby's face were violently ripped off. We are shown the inside of a home, someone sitting in the distance. This person is writing something. Then we are shown the TV screen, and immediately after we hear a scream followed by a loud crack. And through the reflection of the TV screen, we can see that the person we saw took their own life. Project Super Kirby Bug Report, TMK.exe. And in episode 3, somebody finds the body of the person who was no longer alive in the previous episode, turning on the light and discovering the horror of Brent Cole's body. And we are shown the same still from the last video on the TV. However, this time, Kirby is gone. The person who discovered the body picks up the phone and dials another person. Said person picks up and asks why they are calling them at 3 in the morning.
Hello? Any reason you're calling me at 3 in the morning? Some of us have a job to do. You were right. It's getting worse.
Kirby appears and says the following.
Finish what you started. The longer it waits, the worse it will get.
Episode 4, Kirby Sound Test. Kirby stands idly in the sound setting screen, but opening up the closed captioning reveals dialogue emitting from Kirby's sprite.
Why was I created? Answer me. Hello? Please put an answer.
Kirby's face changes and the tape switches to a tape recording. And what's inside of the tape recording is a news reporting on the new Kirby game, set to release in 1996.
Later news. A brand new outbreak has come from the brand new Kirby. Some kids have be safe, but others. I warn all parents to put away their concerns.
The anchor describes that as a result from the recent release of Kirby, some children have suffered fatalities as a direct result from playing the game. We are then shown the tombstone of a Brent Cole. Brent Cole being the child that was killed in episode 2. Brent was only 13 years old, and in a single frame after the tombstone is shown, it says, "I have your son." A message, however, does appear from Kirby while this broadcast is airing, stating the following.
You can't blame me. The modern world is better than yours. You can only blame yourself.
And by the looks of it, it seems that Kirby is taking children into the world of the game. And although this might be somewhat of a fantasy that we all dreamed about as a kid, being able to experience one of our favorite games in reality, Kirby's world is more that of a endless hell that you probably don't want to be taken into. And then we are shown a person watching the broadcast, the same person that called in the previous episode. Then a message hidden within the darkness appears. TMK, 2 pills a day. Episode 5, Project Super Kirby Bug Report 2, TMK.exe. A parasol Waddle Dee approaches King Dedede, and the conversation goes as follows. It is also worth mentioning that Kirby is observing this conversation and does add dialogue to it as well, so I will make that text pink to distinguish it from the other parts of the conversation. What are you doing in my office?
What do you think?
The bug reports I sent. Nothing has changed. That dumb bug again. Important.
Is he trying to do?
We're paying to find serious bugs, not to waste time with this wild goose chase of a bug. TMK is a 1 in a million chance of happening, Donnie.
Why isn't he saying what I say?
Now kindly find me an actually problem. And then after this conversation unfolds, the screen turns on, and an eye presents itself on screen. So what seems to be happening is that given the backlash of Kirby's game taking children's lives, as reported on TV, the company that produced the game, HAL Laboratory, is having their employees search for a bug, if there is any. However, no one has been able to find the bug. And Donnie, the person represented by Waddle Dee, is telling their boss that they're essentially wasting their time searching for this bug. And that's when Donnie's boss agrees, saying that TMK is incredibly unlikely, saying that it's 1 in a million chance of happening, and to stop searching for the TMK bug, and to look for any real bugs if there are any. So this is where we find out that TMK is the phenomenon of Kirby manipulating the game from within it. Episode number 6, Project Super Kirby Bug Report 2, TMK.exe. Now at first glance, looking at the title, it says re-upload, so I pretty much almost skipped over it. And so going into it, the video starts the same, but branches into something completely different. Out of nowhere, the tape is distorted and manipulated until Donnie's boss says something completely different from what they said in the last episode. Answer my questions. And this is referring to the questions that Kirby posed in episode 4. So TMK has been able to manipulate the game to send messages to people playing the game. Episode number 7, Kirby Superstar gameplay. Green Greens. The game starts up and the textures within the game's files are all distorted, glitching out when they appear on screen. The date is September 22nd, 1996, the same year that Brent Cole was killed. Kirby then swallows a Waddle Doo in regular gameplay fashion. However, what happens is something really just gross to see. When Kirby spits them out, they splat against the wall, blood decorating the vibrant, colored wall. Within the game, Kirby enters a tree, and inside a disfigured Kirby floats, grinning at the player. The entity then goes on to tell the player that they need their help to write a message to Donnie, saying that they're smaller than the last kid, so they'll make the message short. 3 letters. TMK. We need to get Donnie moving. Right, kid? And that's when we are shown the 3 children from the first episode once again, assuming one of these children is Brent Cole, which is already dead, and the other is the child in this episode. And then one final message from the entity appears on screen. So then it becomes apparent that the entity needs to get rid of all these 3 children, but there is no reason given, so at the moment it is unclear. And then we see an officer making their way over to the house, signifying that another child was taken, meaning that there's only one more child left until TMK gets what they need. Episode number 8, The Truth Will Come Out. So as of now, we have established that this entity is known as TMK. So for the rest of the video, I will be referring to the entity as TMK. TMK and a Kirby sprite are shown next to each other with a text above saying, File swap fam CM Kirby to TMK.exe. And so what's happening is that TMK is attempting to replace the original Kirby sprite from the game to their own sprite. But then an override protection system blocks it, and a Mario sprite comes up telling the player that they can't go through with this, because of the protection software the game has in place to block all sorts of hacks and game-changing files. TMK then speaks to Donnie, and that's when we discover that it was Donnie attempting to change the character sprite. And then we hear a knocking at Donnie's door, and the person behind the door is Donnie's boss.
Took you long enough. What are you doing at my house? Because you never pick up, so why not just come over, I thought. Have you been drinking? Maybe. You should really go home, man. Not my home. Hey, don't just walk in like you own the place. This isn't work anymore. You can't just tell me everything about TMK. My son just became the 1 in a million. So tell me everything.
And it is here that we unveil the truth. Donnie was the father of Brent Cole, and Donnie was the one that discovered the body of their own son. Donnie was the one that created TMK. Episode number 9, Kirby Superstar Victim 1. TMK appears from within the darkness and displays the act upon which Brent performed upon himself, saying, "He's finally free from you." Then a piece of dialogue from Donnie.
Oh, hello, officer. What is the problem? Wait, what are you trying to say? You think I would push my son to do something like this? I would never hurt my son.
And then for a split second, in a single frame in the episode, a single text line appears. "I didn't mean to hurt my son." And then we are shown Brent going inside of the game from the TV which was in the room when he was no longer alive. TMK speaking to Brent. Brent Cole ended their own life to be inside of the game, but even TMK doesn't know why. So perhaps there was some physical abuse inflicted on Brent Cole by perhaps Donnie, his own father. Donnie did say that he didn't mean to hurt his own son, However, this piece of dialogue could mean one of two things. Either Donnie was hitting his own son, or he's apologizing for creating TMK, which inadvertently caused the death of his own son. Episode number 10, Damage 100% Walkthrough. And in this final episode, we are shown a glimpse of the eternal loop that Brent Cole is undergoing for all of eternity. TMK interrupts the loop to tell Brent this.
Thank you, Brent. But this is where your story ends. I hope that you will also find your purpose one day, wherever you are.
And the final shot of the series is of Brent running in an infinite abyss of darkness, alone, forever. The final message on screen reads, "Now do we have a deal?" Perhaps Brent made a deal with TMK. However, as to what that deal entailed is unknown. And yeah, that was Kirby.exe TMK Season 1. I hope you enjoyed. Do not forget to subscribe because we do cover all sorts of analog horror content here. So if that is your thing, stick around. And if you really liked it, there's also a Season 2 that is also up. So if you guys like this one, let me know and I can cover Season 2. And a huge thank you to all my patrons: Harlow HXLY, Manis Chefitz, Estenius JF, Beguled, Blech, Alyssa, and 10 Tiny Bees. You guys are so awesome. Thank you for supporting the channel. And if you do want to help support the channel, I do have my Patreon linked in the description. So if you want to do that, that'd be really awesome because, yeah, it could help me keep making videos. But yeah, that's everything. Thank you so much for spending some time with me. It was awesome seeing ya. Check out my Joji shirt. It's also awesome. And I'll see you later. Bye.